This podcast is brought to you by LOETB Community Education Service.
When I started on board in Móna, it was 1977. I started down in Derrinlough Engineering Works. We were making machinery for all the third development at that time. They were getting big funding from Europe to bring more bogs into production, and there was a big demand on peat that time. So I stayed there for about 2 years, and then I went back to Lullymore in Kildare. The factory was at going on fire and it burnt the blending shed, and they were looking for extra fitters to go back down there. So myself and another guy, the Lord Mercy, and was with me. He's died since. We were down there for about a year. It was during the winter time of the year, and it wasn't too nice now. We were out working on the shed, and there was no roof or nothing, and it covered in snow and stuff like that. So we stayed down there till that was up and running, and went back to Derrylough for short space of time, and then there was vacancies came up in Lullymore, and we applied for them because they were nearer home. So we went back to Lullymore for, I said, the bones of another year, and then vacancies came up in Derrygreenagh in 1980. And Derrygreenagh was only down the road from us, so we got transferred back to Derrygreenagh in 1980, February 1980. So I stayed there until I retired 4 years ago. Met some great characters in all the works I worked in. Some gentlemen I worked with, some great stories. All the older generation that time was all the older lads out the bog, and were fantastic characters. Some of them were great stories. I mightn't remember them all, but I remember a few of them anyway. So we went to Derrygreenagh then, and was involved in transport, was involved in production, and was involved in the engine bay for a couple of years as well. And then we went to Croghan Brick Factory to look after transport. There was a team set up there with fitters and general operatives on a PBR system to draw in peat to the brick factory. So I was there for a few years as well, and then started bringing in new machinery, so there wasn't a demand for 2 or 3 fitters. So I was asked to either to go to Edenderry Power, the new power station, or I could go to Ballycon, where they were doing all the rail network for the 2 new stations. Well, the first one was Edenderry. There was a massive amount of work. Then Shannon Bridge and Lanesborough came in stream, so I decided to go down there. It was PBR system as well, so you only got paid for the work you done. So it was good. Like, there was an incentive there for you to work. If you didn't work, you didn't get paid. You run a flat week, and we got a good few years out of that. There was a lot of work involved in it. We had to make all the new switches and all the rail network, different parts of it, and so that kept us going for a long number of years. Then we had to do all the maintenance work for Derrygreenagh as well. Like, and the big rail network on board the Móna at that stage. And we done a lot of work for Onini up in Mayo, and Littleton and Tipperary and Derry Fodder as well. And we done some of the work where they were taking the bog over to put in the new Corb field in Derry Fodder as well. We had to do a railway line for them as well, because they were drawing out the bog by rail. There was any way they could get it out. Like, they put down a railway line in Virgin Bog, and they could draw 100 tonne at a time, which was fantastic. People wouldn't realise the amount. Even all the peat was drawn that way for years. It was the same, just a railway line. And maybe latter years they started to use polybrain under the line to make it more firmer base on it. And I often seen the locos, and you wouldn't see the wheel. The line would be gone down into the bog coming up a hill, and the lads would have to give it full butt or they wouldn't get out. The rake would go back on them, and it was all. They had some great, fantastic drivers. And even in production that time, when I went to Mount Lucas first, where the wind farm is now, there was a lot of people probably never saw a tractor until they came to board the Móna. So they had to be all properly trained. You wouldn't be allowed up in a machine unless you were trained properly. Some of them couldn't even start a tractor, so they had a machine. They had a driving instructor there, and he trained every one of them and made good men out of them. Men worked hard. That time there was no air conditioner, radios in a tractor like now, and some of them had no cabs at all. And you'd often be going down, you'd get a call from the supervisor. There was a breakdown on a machine, a harvester or something during the summer, and there'd be maybe 7 harvesters going down the one side of the bog at a time. You wouldn't even see them at dust. How the men stayed in the cabs, I do not know. It was unreal. But they were great men, appreciated the job that time. There was nothing else around, and they were always guaranteed their wages at the end of the week and bonuses and things like that. And then they'd all come up for their tea, and there'd be one lad who'd be trying to be better than the other. And I remember 2 old guys were driving a Harrow tractors, and one lad got a brand new 4-wheel drive tractor, And he said, "Oh, I'm doing all the wet bays." He said, "You're doing all the handy ones." And we sneering like that going on. But it's great whole banter and camaraderie ship as well in it. And they all got pulled well together. And then you go into the workshop. Some of the boys that say out the bog never were in the workshop in their lives, even though there could be 40 years on the board. They wouldn't know where to go nearly. They were all just in the one area. And it's a pity it's all just gone now. And well, there's a wind farm up there now. I say there's only one or two of the guys that I worked with up there still alive of the general operatives, and there's maybe one fitter and a couple of servicemen alive around. But that time there could have been 50 or 60 people in that one area, maybe more. I'd say 90% of them are gone now to the return of the rest. So I'd say if any of them came back now and seen a road up into the bog and wind farms and big lorries drawn up, loads already mixed, they wouldn't believe it. That time you just barely go up and down the bog with a 35 tractor. But I know there was some good stories. Seen the man Monday and he was sunk with a ridger down the bog, and he came up got word up to the supervisor, and someone carried him up, and he said he was sunk down the bog, and the supervisor got a big chain anyway, and he put it up in the back of the tractor. It's just a kind of a platform in the back of the tractor, no cab, no nothing. He said the man with the D4's gone down, he'll be waiting for us, he just wants the chain. So they got down to where the sink was, maybe a couple of mile away, and he said to Barney, he said, "Where's the chain, Barney?" And the chain was that falling off. Barney was a clever old guy anyway, and he said he knew well if the chain fell off he was going to get a bit of extra time driving up and down the bog looking for it. And there was a small little bit of peat in the corner of the back of the box where he was standing, and he started to ruin this, and supervisor said to him, "Oh, jeez, Barney," he said, "it's now a watch chain we're looking for." No, there was great stories like that being told, and one lad would be trying to be better than the other, and the same in the workshop as well. When they go in, to be lads cutting hair, and even though they weren't supposed to be, and maybe have it half cut and the battery go with the machine, they do it on purpose and send the lad home with it half cut and finish it the next day, and bits of banter like that. But it's a good spot to work in, and it's all changed now. It's all gone to modern technology now, and most of the workshops are closing down now and are being sold, left on to someone else. And then they broke out into new fields, into AES and wind power and all that, and that's all the modern technology now. But there won't be as many people employed, and it gave great service when it was going, like, and they had looked after everyone well. Everyone they wanted could be trained in first aid, and when the defibrillators and that came out first, we didn't know what they were, and every workshop had to have one or two people trained, and then they had first aid teams, but I was never involved in the teams. It was a little bit before my time, but they had serious competitions every year, one works against the other, and they took pride in Order Malta, or some of them maybe checking out to see were they doing all their work right. And then they had football tournaments, which was fantastic as well, and majority of the players that played on them were county class. Like they had Mount Dillon, Blackwater, Derrygreenagh, Boor, Clonsas, Croghan Bricket Factory. Like, and it was, I'd say you'd pick all-stars out of them now at the moment, or that good. And there was a huge interest in that. Every work supplied their own teams with a set of jerseys as well, which was well done. And the foreman always made sure if any lad was a good footballer, he got a job on the board at that stage, and probably helped awfully a good bit in the hurling and football too. They looked after them, and they hadn't to go outside the county or outside the country to get a job, where that day is gone now. But I know it was a good spot and nice to work in, and you were always well looked after with PE gear and everything like that. You had to have your proper footwear and safety glasses, helmets, overalls, stuff like that. There was nothing you were never left short of anything, and you always guaranteed your wages every weekend. It wouldn't be like working for a farmer to see you after second mass or something. He'd probably never go to mass. For no, it was good now, and I enjoyed it for the 41 years I was there, and they're still in contact with a lot of my mates. Like, they ring me every couple of days and we have a chat about what happened, and lads has passed on, and that's the way it's going now. I was out in an area one day, and we called it Area 18, and all the guys was a lot older than I am, and they were all, one lad was trying to be better than the other, and they were talking about things that happened to them when they were going to national school and stuff like that, and they'd have to write a competition about what was their stories and all that, and what did they write about. And this one man who's from Clonbelogue, would call him Johnny, and Larry said to him, "Well, Johnny, what did you write about?" And he said, I wrote about my trashing day. And Larry said to me, "Jeez, Johnny, that didn't take too long. All he had at home was a cottage garden." There was a bit about banter, and one lad would be trying to be better than the other, and there was often bits of rows and falling outs, but they'd all be pulled together the next day, and Another guy one day, he was asked to walk on lane, he had no cigarettes and he was mad for a smoke, and he said to this other man, he said, Paddy, any chance of a cigarette? He said, I've no cigarettes left. And Paddy took out 10 and he put them on the track of the machine, and took out another 10 and put them down beside him, and he said, Paddy, if you want cigarettes, buy them. And he took up the 2 packs and put them in his pocket. And of course there's another lad, and Paddy was unreal. But that's the way it went, and there was no harm in it at the back of it all. It was all innocent. I lived in Dang and had my own house, and it was only about 10 minutes away from work, so you had to be clocked in every morning at 8 o'clock. If you weren't clocked in, well, you were allowed some 15 minutes in the week, and if you were any longer, you'd be docked an hour. So it made everyone be on time. And I drove to Derrinlough, which is 32 miles away from me, for a couple of years, and I never was late any morning. But people had pride going to their work that time, and were happy with it, and they always made sure they were on time. But the foreman down Derrinlough that time, you would step in to the workshop, and there was 80 fitters in it that time, and I don't know how many workshop helpers, and you'd go over to your locker and you put on your overalls. The hoover went at 8 o'clock, and if you weren't gone from your locker by 2 minutes past 8, you get a bit of a chawn. You could be gone the next morning. But it was just for your own benefit, and you appreciated the foreman. He wouldn't hold it again. He'd come back to you maybe in a half an hour, ask you to do something else. But it's all good though. But there was no messing around, and you had to work till 5 to 10 or 3 minutes to 10, then wash your hands, go in and get your tea break for a quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, out again, then same at 1 o'clock, and finish at 4:30 unless you run overtime or stuff like that. But just be good crack in the canteen then as well, with lads be taking eggs and stuff belonging to one another, and put maybe that time they had stuff for washing their hands was for vegan, put it into some lad's bread and take out the ham or whatever what was in it, or it was on some unreal characters. But it was all in good old sport though. There was no badness at the back of it after all. Very nice and taste. And you squeeze this, all the green stuff started come out through it. But the lads know well straight away, and they'd leave it down, and they'd know well who was after doing it to them as well. But and so then going to the football matches that time, it was like going to a county final. Like, there'd be massive crowds. I think the Board of Móna finals was always held in O'Connor Park that time, and there'd be a huge crowd that had always played of a Saturday. But I know lads that never worked on the board and were involved in J, and they'd always be looking out for the Board of Móna finals, because there's some great footballers there. Lads that would have played for Leinster and played for Offaly and Galway and Roscommon and places like that. It was a huge catchment area. Like, they all got on well together and probably met playing for their own counties after, and there'd be a fair bit of niggling as well, but it was all left on the pitch at that stage. But it kept lads happy too, and they appreciated the job they had, and they were always looked after. There was always food supplied for them, or a meal or something after the game, or to get something anyway, and the van would bring them. They wouldn't have to drive their own cars, and probably a lot of them that time had no cars, probably going on a bike or a Honda 50 maybe, but that's the way it was. And they'll always get time off to train or stuff like that. The old foreman would always kind of look after them. The hall died then when the new regime came in. I think we got the best years out of it. I think the last few years it's all about modern technology. Everything has to be showing a profit. That time it was more or less to create work for the Laois, Offaly's, Kildares, Westmeads, Roscommons, Galways. It wasn't really set up when the Tough Development Board was set up in the 40s or that. It was set up to create jobs. It wasn't really to make a profit, but they always did make a profit. Like, probably at the start they spent a lot of money in machinery and stuff like that, but over the years they always contributed huge money to head office, all the works. And then when the new regime came in, got rid of peat production, and now they're talking about closing down the last bricky factory they have. And it's all about modern technology now, wind energy and solar panels and stuff like that, and there's not the same amount of people employed, and the people that's there now never knew the hardship the older people got. I seen guys out the bog in snow and rain, and a couple of particular fellas, like I seen one year, it was 1982, I was working for Christmas because my wife was expecting her first child, and I said I'll work because she wasn't going in until late in December, early January, and the lines was all blocked with snow, and they couldn't get peat into the power station in Road or the briquette factory in Croghan. At that time the factory would only go down for Christmas Eve, and it'd be up St. Stephen's Estate. There was that much for demand in briquettes, and they had a special snow plough they put on the front of a blade of a D3 and clear all the lines to make sure they could get travelling and get the peat in and keep the whole works going. Like if the factories and power stations wasn't going that time, there'd be no revenue going to head office. But we were out the bog one year, and we had no such thing as winter diesel at that time. It was all just ordinary red diesel, and the weather was that bad and frosty that the diesel started to turn into jelly and the machines wouldn't go. We spent days and days out there draining tanks and putting paraffin oil in with the diesel and everything to make sure that we got everything going. And I don't know whether the lads nowadays do it or not, but we appreciate the job we had. But I think the crowd that's running the board now don't realise the hardship the older men got digging drains by hand, and there was no thing as a high mac around at the start. Now I wasn't there that time, but I used to hear the older guys talking about you had to dig so many metres a day down in the drain, and they had no proper wet gear or anything that time, where it all changed in latter years. But now it's all about modern technology, people sitting in an office making decisions, and it's not the same. Maybe if I was reared then I'd be in line with it too, but we were brought up the hard way, knew no better. Yeah, I built a new house over it and it educated me. I only went to secondary school in Tullamore and got my junior cert, and then went in to serve my time, and my daughters got university education and they got 2 good jobs over it, and I built my house over and bought a few cars up and down. It was good to me, and I'm still getting my pension over it, and along with the old age pension as well, so we're not doing too bad.
This podcast is brought to you by LOETB Community Education Service.